Alright, I made it to one of my old camps. It's more of a waiting area, but I'm right off BNSF. I'll show you the yard here. Kind of sloppy this morning. I'm still frozen. Yeah, my hands are still. Now I gotta find the darn lid. Dropped it. Yeah, this is Grand Crossing. Now, going that way, Minneapolis on BNSF. Going that way, Chicago on BNSF. Now coming in this way is Chicago on Canadian Pacific. And DM&E actually has a line that pretty much starts here, but really don't get going until Winona, Minnesota City. But their yard is just back here. I gotta be real watchful. The yard office is just right up there. I don't want the bull, someone seeing me. But yeah, DM&E picks up out of this yard and brings to Winona. Can't believe I found my old spot. So the idea when you catch a train, when they pull in for crew change, you got to be down a good ways, at least half mile or half a train length down. And since the crew change office is up there, you need to be half mile or more down. Gives you just enough time to find you a car. That train that just went by, oh God, I don't ride that unless it's absolutely, like if I rob a bank and need to get out of town, I'll ride one. But shoestring don't rob no banks. I used to have a friend on Facebook named Robin Banks. Yeah, thought that was a train horn at first. Yeah, I don't see any evidence of any other riders back here. There's a trail But I think that just where some local kids probably come back and party. Boy, I bet the mosquitoes are going to be bad once it gets warm. Now let me set this camera up. Hope I don't push anything. Bear with me. Man, I could really use some help making these damn videos. Alright. Oh, yeah, I don't feel too good this morning. I got about 8 hours of sleep, but I just did not sleep good, thinking that guy was gonna come up to that fence that owned that house. It's kind of a flop here when you get two railroads, three in this case, that are together in one place. You could almost go anywhere, north, south, east, west. And I'm not going back east or south, I just come from there. So either way, going that way, whatever comes and stops first. But somebody had mentioned, had I ever seen any bears? Oh yeah, in Alaska, in Anchorage. I was waiting 2 days on the dang train there. Finally got in a boxcar. They don't roll them with the doors open in Alaska, but this one must have been a fluke. I don't know how it got past the workers, unless the door was broken, it wouldn't close. But got in and finally took off. We sided out in Healy, Alaska, about midpoint from Fairbanks and Anchorage. And that's another tuna fish can story. I'd ate a couple of cans of tuna fish and threw them off the train out on the side of the track. And next thing I know, I thought it was a worker walking up on me at first, but it was that bear. He smelled that tuna fish. He got, I don't know how he did it. He got up in the boxcar, and he didn't look either way when he got in, and then he turned around and jumped right back out. He probably followed that tuna fish scent up into the boxcar, and maybe he smelt me is why he got out. But then there's several moose incidents. In the winter of '93, I was living down in Sterling, Alaska, outside Soldotna, and me and Josh, my little brother-in-law, then went to take a walk out in the deep snow we had the night before. And of course, when you're in snow that's knee deep, you're looking down while you're walking. I look up, and there is there had to have been 1,600-pound bull moose standing from here to that little pond down there. I don't know, maybe 40 feet. And I said, Josh, do not move. Josh was about 7 then. Of course, I was having to carry him half the way through that snow anyway. And we didn't really plan on going back that far. But, oh God, I was like, Josh, walk backwards in your own steps you just made. Just reverse. We'll go out of here the way we came in, real slow. And that's what happened. That moose never moved, but it had its eye on us. Every year you hear about someone getting trampled by moose, especially when they're calving and pregnant or have calves. Oh, they get really aggressive. I'm trying to think of another story. Oh, that time I hitchhiked. Oh, let me back up. I rode the freight train as far as St. Anthony, Maine. I think St. Stephen's, Maine. And this was my first trip ever to Newfoundland. And got off in St. Stephen's. I hitchhiked the rest of the way to the ferry terminal, and took a couple of days to get across New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. But I got to the little port town of North Sydney, Newfoundland, on Cape Breton Island, and it was $16 to walk on the ferry with just no car or nothing, just yourself. And it's about 9 hours to get across about 115 miles of open water, and then you dock in Newfoundland in a town called Port au Basque, and all the Newfies up there, and all the Canadians call people Newfies from Newfoundland. And I learned to say if you're heading to the Rock, you were going to Newfoundland. But I had gotten when I was on the ferry, I got to know a guy. They had a casino, bar, and everything on the ferry. It was called the Joseph Smallwood, the MB Joseph Smallwood. And I got to talking to him, and he said he was heading to St. John's, the capital, all the way on the other end of the island. And we just took our time and saw some pretty country. Went through near Gander Air Force Base where they had that real bad plane crash, killed all them soldiers back in the 80s or 90s, I think. But the next day, we camped together for a couple of days. He had his own little like minivan deal, but I just slept outside next to it. But went to a place called Cape Spear, and there's a marker there on the road. It says, "This is the farthest east you can go on the North American continent." And it's kind of ironic because in Point Barrow, Alaska, I wish I had these pictures. It said, "You have now reached the farthest north you can go on the North American continent." And then in uh, Kasilof, Alaska, or no, it's Anchor Point, just north of Homer. There's a historical marker. It says, "This is the farthest west you can drive on the North American continent with connecting roads to the outside." But I guess seeing the Pribilof Islands in Alaska would be my next big thing besides Antarctica and Trans-Siberian Railway. I want to do that so bad. But back to Newfoundland. I used to be on a medication called Dilantin and Tegretol for seizures that I had when I was young. And I ended up getting off my meds because I was away from the doctor I had in Alaska. So ended up having a real small, like petite mal seizure. They put me in the hospital and found out that I was a USA citizen. So they sent a immigration officer in. I still remember his name was Greg Powers, and he said that they were going to have to deport me since I was in Canada with no means to support myself. So as soon as I got discharged from the hospital, I already had a manila envelope with all my paperwork in it that I was to give to customs. But they flew me all the way back to Baton Rouge, and 4 months later, I went back again, hitchhiked all the way back. Same thing happened there. I got caught again. My same immigration officer, Greg Powers. It took a little longer to get me out, but that's how I got to Barrow, Alaska, and ended up just doing day jobs to get a plane ticket out. But Barrow, that was one of my bucket list items that I achieved pretty early in my travels. I guess I could talk about my Mexico when I went down to Mexico, all the way down to Guadalajara, Mexico City, and riding the freights down there. Been to 14 states in Mexico. Been to all states except Hawaii. Of course, there's no rail in Hawaii. 49 states in the U.S. and 5 provinces of Canada I've ridden rail through, and not just once, but several times. I'll have to do another video on border crossings, on how I sneaked across the border into Canada. That might be another good video, but I guess that's all for now. Let's hope this is recording. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying this. I would have done videos about it, stories earlier, had I known